any of them. All right, so we're just talking about King Crimson having 3 drummers, so you know where we're at right now. But let's start.
Well, I'll answer the question. If there's 3 drummers and one of them is not Bill Bruford, I don't want to see him. I saw Bruford in King Crimson, and it's a big step down no matter who they have. I'm sorry.
Yeah, now if you want to talk about a waste of time, then let's talk the Grammys. And I'm just kidding. I
don't even watch it, so I don't.
This time I couldn't even know it. And you know what it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of people complaining about the government and a lot of other things going on too. And it's just going to be, I don't know. There's the holier than thou thing that's bothering me right now. As much as I think this government's horrible, I think that there's a celebrity thing that's really not helping. Like it's just not helping anything.
No. I actually think
when 2 super rich people get up there, dressed to the nines and with mink scars draped around them and talk about how horrible our president is. It just really doesn't connect. I don't know.
I get it.
That's maybe, but
well.
But another thing. So yes, a friend of mine texted me today that he's thinking of going to the Barclays Center to see the Yes induction.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it too. I really hope that that Journey can get Perry, but I don't think he's going to go.
Yeah, and how about Geddy Lee and Alex Leifson are doing the induction?
Yes.
Not shocking because they're. If you watch the Rush documentary, the 2 or 3 bands that they say are their biggest influences are Yes, Genesis, and Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go, tell me and I'll go with you.
Yeah, it's April 7th, huh?
Okay. I got to look when. I think, Mets opening day is earlier than that, so I'm good.
Yeah.
Pitchers today, right?
Catchers.
Pitchers and catchers today, right?
Yeah.
Today or tomorrow, yeah.
So right now there's a guy in a really green field somewhere throwing a ball to another guy in a really green field somewhere, and
you know what? It's not that. I'm going to tell you what it is. Just the same as the melting of your ice rink in the yard, it represents spring is coming.
It's the promise of spring.
My rink never grew, so I mean,
it's the promise of spring and summer and overpriced hot dogs and stale Cracker Jacks.
Yes.
Never have I been more suited to do the advertisement for Smart Rink the simple advice than I am right now. Like I am so frustrated. And I've been talking to them about it. We're going to do something soon, and it's just very funny because it's there's just no question that my journey this year on my ice surface has been so unbelievably frustrating. I've filled it 3 times now and emptied it 3 times now. And just when I think I'm going to have another possibility, because there's going to be a couple more days that stay below freezing, it's just. I mean, what's the point of 38 degrees? That's my question. Like, what's the point of 38? That's like the worst temperature in the world to me. Like, 38 degrees.
The point of 38 degrees is to create misery.
I know. There's nothing good that comes out of that. I mean, we got a snowstorm last week. That was fun. I was, of course, sick as a dog for it, but
you got it. We didn't even get it. We got like nothing. It was on the grass.
Oh, you got nothing? We had like a good 4 or 5 inches, and that was great. But I had laryngitis, so I couldn't even leave the house. But anyway, let's start the show, shall we? We've got lots to talk about today. All right, here we go. Today's date is the 13th of just now for the first time. This is the entire time we've been doing this podcast, which is probably over 1,000 now. I have to count. We're getting close.
Okay.
The entire time we've been using Google Hangouts, the entire time the date has been right there on the Google Hangouts, right in front of me. Every time, like right below my picture, below your picture, that on the screen. Every time I go to my phone.
Half of those times you've gotten the damn date wrong.
I go to my phone every time to look and see what date it is. I'm learning. It's all about life.
I would have thought Alexa would have been a help, but she's not.
Nah, she's still under the table. Anyway, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, February 13th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and if you're missing baseball, buy my book, Numbers Don't Lie, New York Mets. There you go.
Pitchers and catchers reporting. And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time. And we actually did a show on Saturday, which was really fun, with Kevin Allen and Bob Duff, which was really fun. Not fun. I shouldn't say fun to do a Mike Ilitch show, but it was really great stories. So I definitely recommend checking that out. We got together. I just called up Kevin on the morning. I'm like, hey, we should do something, and he was just all for it. So we just jumped on and and got those guys to tell some great stories. And then the similarities between Ilitch and Snyder are so glaring, so right there. It's fascinating. These two owners, leaving the planet, within the same year, and basically both really just so responsible for their franchise's successes for such a long time. I mean, Ed Snyder for the entire time the Flyers existed, but Ilitch the same way, and it's no coincidence that back when I started doing this, when I started really following hockey rumors before there was a salary cap and everything like that, that every trade rumor went through Detroit and Toronto and Philadelphia. That's what it used to be the case, and that was because these owners of Detroit and Philadelphia were just so, they were fans and they would do anything, they would spend any amount of money they could to try to win. So that's what you see with Ilitch and Snyder. So it's interesting. And we have some owners like that now, I think, but we were talking about the owner that's most like that now, and it could be most like that now moving into the future. But it's definitely a podcast worth checking out. And speaking of the Red Wings, Gustav Nyquist, not the famous, not the Nyquist that the horse was named after, right? The horse was named after this Nyquist, right? This guy.
Yes.
Which is not the famous Nyquist from Russia, who is the famous engineer who discovered so much in science. Like, what do you say Nyquist to my wife?
I know Tesla. I don't even know who Nyquist is. Like, I don't know.
Nyquist was one of the most famous scientists of all time. He's a Russian, one of the famous, definitely most famous Russian scientists of all time. So my wife, when she saw Nyquist,
can we at least get something flashing that says "nerd alert" when you do these?
Oh no! This is just knowledge, stuff you should know here, man.
Nobody knows. There's not anybody watching that knows.
Oh yes, they do.
Not even me.
Right.
You guys know who Nyquist is out there. Anyway, but let's just leave it from there and say that we have an in-person hearing today for Gustav Nyquist for his relatively intense high-stick spearing of the face of Jared Spurgeon. I put this out on Hockey Buzz is to see how many games everybody thought it should be, and I want to hear your opinion. I'll throw mine out. But so far, the fans are in about 65% say it should be more than 5 games. So
no way.
Seems to be the predominant reply.
Well, if it's an in-person hearing, it's going to be over 5 games. Usually, if it's a phone hearing, it's below 5. If it's an in-person hearing, it's going to be.
Well, it could be just 5.
It doesn't mean it's going to. Yeah, it could be just 5. It actually doesn't. I thought that was the case, but it's not. In-person hearings, people have gotten out of things in in-person hearings. Remember,
that's true too.
So it doesn't necessarily.
I'd like to hear the case of, well, I didn't really mean to spear him in the face, but
it doesn't look good. Okay,
it doesn't look good. I saw it. I think it's between 3 and 5. That's what I think it is.
I think. Well, okay. On the side of Nyquist not getting a big suspension is the fact that he doesn't have a history of doing this.
Right.
And that always has to be taken into consideration. But this was clearly a retaliatory situation because Spurgeon had cross-checked him, not dirtily, but had cross-checked him into the boards, and Nyquist turned around and looked and then swung the stick and hit him right underneath the eye. So I think that they're going, even though he hasn't had anything in the past, I think they're going to throw the book at him. I think he's going to get like 8 games.
Could be. I mean, dirtily. I'm going to look up that word later.
Yeah, I don't know if
it's not a word.
It's not a word. Okay.
Yeah, that's what is that, an adverb? Anyway, all right. So, yeah, I would say the fact he's never done it before definitely does play into it. But he did feel bad about it right away, which of course you will. Somebody in the face, but it just. And he says his stick got caught, which I can't really see how his stick got caught.
No way.
Things do happen fast, and you're just throwing your stick around, yeah. But you got to be responsible for it. You got to be a little bit more responsible than that. To me, that was kind of crazy. I think it's, I think it should be a 7 or 8 gamer. To be honest, that's where I am.
I think because not the prior history, it's going to be lower than that.
Yeah. It's possible.
Dirtily is an adverb, so
Yeah, that's right. It was an adverb. Okay, but
Wow.
it is actually a word.
yeah, it is actually a word. So
Okay.
take
Good for
that, take that, Mr. Webster.
Dirtily.
Yep, Dirtily.
There's our show title, Dirtily. It's not a.
I thought you made it up. Good for you.
Pleasant word to say. All right. Well, so we'll see what happens with that. That we're going to keep track of that. We're going to get to some rumors too, but we have to let's hit some news first here. And we're going to, because we have mostly rumors today. But to start off with, let's talk about the slow demise of the Montreal Canadiens right now in a division that really is not good. This division in general has struggled lately. Although as we sit here today, the Toronto Maple Leafs have passed the Flyers into the playoffs based on the fact they played less games, but they're the same amount of points.
This wasn't a good weekend for Toronto in the sense of the race in the East because everybody won.
Yeah.
Except that. And they play the Islanders tomorrow, and if the Islanders beat them, the Leafs will be outside of the playoffs right now. Now, they've got games in hand, but the way they've been playing, they've lost 4 of their 6 games in February. They've only scored a goal each game in the last 2 games. I think the schedule's getting a little bit to them right now. We'll see. But regarding
they're faltering. It's slow because it's like a slow bleed out, but it's happening.
And regarding Montreal, they lose to Colorado. They blow a lead against Arizona. And Carey Price looked terrible in that game. And then they fly all the way back to play St. Louis in Montreal on Saturday, and then lose to Boston last night. And it was not a close game. It was not at all. Right now, I think Montreal is in a position and Bergevin is in a position where he has got to pull the trigger on some sort of deal to improve that team because they're weak up the middle, as they have been for a while, and they need scoring, and maybe even they need another defenseman. And the time to strike is now. You've got Price, you've got Radulov, you've got Pacioretty, you've got Weber with a window of maybe 2 or 3 years where he's at the top of the game. And after that, they go downhill. So you better strike now.
Yeah, they really, but they didn't do it last year. This year they have to. It's either, change the lineup or change the coach. There's rumors around what's going on in that locker room that are unconfirmed, but it doesn't sound pretty. And they're losing, and so this is your typical swirling Montreal stuff that you get when they start to falter. They have enough to win, but they do need help. They do need a little bit of a jolt, and so I think they really do need to do something quickly. If they don't do something quickly, then you could see a coaching change. That's a possibility. At first I didn't think it was going to happen this year, but now it's Montreal. I wouldn't put anything past it.
Well, you can't fall out of the playoffs, it's possible. It's not impossible for them to do that, and there still are. They're only at the 58 game point, but the fact of the matter is, the Ottawa Senators, who are 6 points behind them, 6 points. Sorry, I'm speaking without S's at the end of the world to honor our Canadian friends, our French Canadian friends. 6 points behind them. 6 points behind them. The Senators are, and they are, but they have 5 games at hand. 5 games at hand. This is Montreal's bye week, which is also going to mean that all these rumors are going to be way more intensified. Because if there's one thing we like at Hockey Buzz, it's Montreal Canadiens bye weeks. This is going to be, especially going into the bye week like they went. You're right. Rumors are going to fly around this week. And they were this morning. It was very hard to weed through everything that was happening. When I was talking to people. I did a lot of research on Terry, and it seems as if he's safe still at this point. And I think you're right, Russ, in that I think that they are going to let him go out the season.
I think the only thing that kills him is if they take a quick exit in the first round. I think he's got the regular season, and if they have a reasonably successful playoff,
then he'd be safe.
But if he bows out in the first round, if they play, Philadelphia or in the first round, or the Rangers in the first round,
would you love Toronto? Come on now.
I think Montreal would beat Toronto. Right now.
Too.
This is the thing,
Not right now. Not right now. They wouldn't.
Well, the way they're playing right now, but I'm talking Well,
the
first of
pressure
all,
on the Canadians would be so intense in that series because it's Toronto, because Toronto is been so terrible, and they have been so good, and they've been the team that's supposed to win all along. For Toronto to actually take them out of that series, that's the matchup that Montreal doesn't want anything to do with in my mind.
well, I mean, and sometimes regular season records don't mean a thing when it comes to the playoffs, but Montreal has pretty much dominated the Leafs in 3 regular season games so far. So, I mean, if that happened, but
They would be the favorite. I agree with you, but I think that is a series I want to see. That I want to see. I want to see that series.
We'd all love to see it. I just think I can't judge how Montreal is going to be now as to 28 games down the line or whatever it is left.
I don't think it happen because I think Washington's going to get whoever finishes in that second wild card, and I think the Rangers. I think really we're looking at really just a battle now for the second wild card spot in each conference, which is kind of lame. Like
it is a little lame. It is.
I mean, you really are at the point right now where you have basically one playoff spot open, and we had a debate about this over the weekend, and I'm going to do a little sidetrack here in a second. So when I was talking to Kevin on the podcast for Illich, we got into a discussion beforehand that we didn't want to talk about during the show because we were talking about Mike Illich. But Ken Holland has always been a big proponent, like I am, of the 3 points for regulation win concept. And now Ken Holland says that he's not. He thinks that why would we change things that we already have things that are so close? Why would we let teams run away with things? Why would we? And Ken Holland is all about. He thinks we have a good system, and I'm still in the other camp. I'm still in the 3 point for regulation win, and the reason I am is because you can sit there and say that teams aren't running away with it, but and you look on this thing and you're like, oh, 12 points or whatever, that's only 6 wins. But what's the difference between somebody up 7 or 8 points with 5 teams between you and them them up 15 points with 5 teams? Because I mean, honestly, when someone's up that many points, we all already act like they've run away with it. Like we act like it's impossible to come back on.
The system, the way it is right now, is sort of camouflages teams a little longer than they actually should. I mean, in this case, use Detroit for example. They have 54 points. 61 points is the second wild card. They're only 7 points behind, but there are so many teams in between, and there are 3-point games. That 7 points in this system is like 14 in the other one.
It's like 14 So if you had 3 points for a regulation win here, Detroit would have hope that they could actually come. And yes, the NHL's whole concern with this 3 points for regulation win, and I've talked to him about it a lot, is that the top teams will just run away with it to the point where they'll be so far ahead that it won't matter, right? Like Montreal right now can fall out of it, but Montreal, if they get 3 points for regulation win in the beginning of the year, they would be up by 15, 20 points right now, right? So who knows? My argument is those teams are usually out. Those teams are so far ahead anyway. We're just pretending they aren't. Like
there's another debatable point inside this debatable point. My Facebook page blew up the other day because I dared to talk about Henrik Lundqvist's 400th win. It ties into this because 345 of them are without the shootout win. The others are, and so they're now people discounting wins. Because they're like, well, because of all this trickery, he's got 400. And so here's it's a dual thought here. So and you guys can give your opinion. 400's 400 because the league says it's 400 because they're counting it. Now, fastest to 400, I don't put any stock in because the shootout's helping that. Ties were certainly an issue because guys lost wins over ties. I would like to see just 2 points, winner take all. That's it. I don't care if it goes to shootout. You get 2, you get 0.
Okay with that.
I think that's the easiest way, but they'll never do it. But the 400 thing, what really caused a chasm. Go ahead.
You go first, Ross. Finish your thought.
Yeah, what caused the chasm was I said, like in baseball, there's a guy named Dummy Hoy. He is in the top 10 steals of all time. Now, in the very early part of his career, some steals were noted when he went from first to third, just on a base hit. A guy would get a steal, and someone said, well, how many does he have that way? And I was like, nobody knows because record keeping just wasn't great then, even for box scores. And so, this is where you have to just say, hey, look, whatever the league says is a win, and that's it. But I'm telling you now, this is now the new thing where people are going to start picking apart this.
Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I saw that debate as well. I agree with it. I agree with that. What you're saying that the NHL calls this a win. This is a win, and that's how you have to do. I mean, home runs in baseball. there's still a home run, if they change the balls or if they do whatever, everything, still home runs. There's still home runs, depending on, as long as you're not doing something illegal to win or get home runs or whatever. Yeah, that's fine. And even that, was disproved on MythBusters. The cork bats don't actually hit the ball further. But, so there's that too.
It just makes the bat lighter is what it does.
Yeah, but it doesn't, it doesn't
It's
help.
the bat speed, though. If you have the right guy doing it, look, MythBusters was right 99% of the time.
Yeah.
But I still fight that one.
That's a good one. And you're right. And the bat speed, that would be a good thing for them to do again at some point. But my point is, like, okay, the reason and I'm all for your solution. 2 points for a win, nothing else. I think sports and games in general are about winning and losing. That you play a game, I play Monopoly. I don't leave saying, oh, I partially won Monopoly. I either win or I lose, right? That's the bottom line. It's a game. It's a way a game is. And that's okay. And the issue here, I think the reason that they're giving this point for a regulation loss so much credence is not because of the tie issue, but because of the shootout issue. And I think that my thing is that it feels so I would almost be for the concept of this is so confusing. 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for a win just in general, and you only but 1 point for a shootout loss. A shootout loss, not an overtime loss, but a shootout loss. Just give like a because I mean, to me, the overtime losses are a problem. Okay.
How many columns do you want?
I know. I'm with you. The bottom line would be what you're saying, but they will never, as long as the shootout exists, we will never. They're not going to allow that to be a 2-point swing. And that's
the team was 7-2-0-1-1 in the last 11 games. I mean, it's just
it just depends what you consider an overtime loss. Like if you call a loss, but then a shootout loss, it would just be a column instead of overtime loss. It would be shootout loss, and you would just carry the 2 points over, and no points for an overtime loss. And that's basically that's all you're changing. So, you know what I mean? That's not that complicated.
You're like the Professor Irwin Corey of the hockey world now. Like this is
now it's the same thing. It's just
I'll make sure I go out and buy an abacus so I can check out the standings. Now, this is what I mean. I mean, right
We're
now
gonna have to color code the standings now.
Not that hard. Anyway,
the NHL wants to keep this scenario right now because it makes the standings artificially closer than they actually are. And my point before was Detroit is 7 points out of it. Kenny Holland, your team is toast. They're done. Start trading because you're not going to make up 7 points in the standings.
And that's insane because that you can't make up.
You know it's the right thing. You know it's right.
I know you're right, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that you need to have a way that a team can make up 7 points in the standings. Like that is just
no, you don't.
No.
But you do.
They want it close.
If you counted regulation wins as 3 points, you would have a way that you could do it. Okay, and they could make up points in the standings, and we would have and you could sit there and argue that this keeps the standings closer. But my system of 3 points in a regulation win makes every regular season game more interesting, and
I'm not disputing that, Eck, but I think in the end, what they're going to opt for is this, camouflage of keeping the standings relatively close because it saves jobs, coaches and general manager. Oh, we only missed the playoffs by 6 points. I'm
not seeing any coaching changes or anything like that. I mean, that's like I know what you're saying, but it artificially.
You know what? If Detroit wants to get back in it, they'll have to win like 23 of 28, however many games they have left, and that's that.
Yeah. No, yeah. I agree. I mean, I think that someone pointed out to me the Western Conference is way tighter than the Eastern Conference, and it is.
It is, but every year there's an inequity in it. Every year there's an easier thing if there's a crossover. Like there's no perfect way to do this.
Yeah, they're 7 points behind the wild card, and there are 6 teams in between them.
Right.
Good luck. So you need all 6 of those teams to have a losing record while you go say 8-2.
Right. And that's why you buy. That's why my buyer seller thing counts teams between you and playoff spots. That's what. And I agree. You're absolutely right. It makes it way harder to get through because all those teams are picking up extra points throughout that whole time. They're playing each other. They're tying each other.
I'm just letting you know on trade deadline day, I'm going to eat in the early going because we're not going to hear anything for the first hour or two. So I'm going to get my food out of the way. And then when stuff starts breaking late, then that'll be fun.
I'm torn about that, and it's interesting you bring that up. So I was asked this question today: will we see lots of trades prior to trade deadline day? Will we see trades on? And I'm starting to feel as if we are going to have a boring trade deadline day because we're going to see trades prior to it. I'm starting to feel as if we're going to see trades within the next week.
I think because of the closeness, we're not going to see as many. You might get one before the trade deadline that you really raises your eyebrows, but I think the rest, everybody's waiting. Like, look, St. Louis is waiting till the bitter end. There's teams that are waiting till the bitter. Winnipeg's waiting till the bitter end.
Yeah,
like you know.
Well, I mean, I think this weekend was the death knell for Dallas, for Detroit, and maybe for Buffalo. Even though
They still won't admit it.
No, of course they won't admit it, but when it gets closer to March 1, I have a feeling that a lot of these contending teams are going to wait until the absolute last moment to get the best deal that they can, plus to open up as much cap space as they can, because with each day they have guys like buried in the minors, they open up more cap space, so it gives them more flexibility to wait to the last minute to do it. Now they may pay a little extra sometimes, but sometimes teams get desperate and they say, okay, well, we got to get rid of this player and maybe we can get a better deal now, or better, or just make something right at the deadline and get as much as they can. So I think there's a sort of a dual game here. You'll have managers who traditionally like to move early, like Bowman does in Chicago. He likes to make his deal like a week or two out from the deadline and not have to deal with the hectic nature of that day. But I also think you're going to have bargain shoppers. So I think we'll be busy. I don't think
here's a good example. Like, and if you could find the video, like with that altercation yesterday with Leonard, that was entertaining. But the Vancouver Canucks, they're still in it.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, but they're clueless for us. That's the thing.
See, I disagreeing with you on that, because if they were clueless, Mike, they wouldn't have gotten Ryan Miller in the first place. If they were clueless, they wouldn't even be in it now. They definitely have gotten great coaching.
Oh yeah, they've gotten. I mean, despite the fact that they're minus 25 in goal differential.
I know. If you think about it, that's what I'm saying. If you think about it, they're illogical, but they're in it.
That's what I mean. I mean, they're lying to themselves. That team.
No, I don't think they are. See, that's and this is what my contention was early in the year, and I still feel the same way. They have young talent. You never know when that's going to sort of kick in. Young talent's definitely up and down. But the idea is that they have a lot of fresh legs down the stretch here, and there might be some teams that do get tired. And the Sedins know there's not much time left either playing together in that city or playing together, period. And so I think you're going to get a surge from them too. Miller's – I think we talk about goalies. Ryan Miller has had one of the best years that Ryan Miller's ever had, considering what he's working with, and no one talks about him.
You might get a surge out of them, and they may have enough oomph to get into the playoffs. But what I'm saying is that team has been lying to themselves this year, because I don't think they're good enough. And I think that they would have been much better in terms of an organizational plan to go on to do the rebuild, but their ownership would not allow them to do that. And that's why they signed Eriksson. That's why they'll probably, instead of selling at the deadline, they'll probably be buyers. And maybe they sneak into the first round of the playoffs, so they sneak into the last wild card spot and lose to Chicago. I just think it's dumb, but they're going to do what they're going to do what they want to do. I just think it's the wrong direction, but maybe they have enough. But I think they'll probably, even though they probably should be sellers and sell Miller and sell Burrows and sell a couple other guys that they have, they're probably going to add players.
Here's Miller's numbers. It's funny because he's 15-15, 0-3. And he's got a .917 save percentage. Like, that's – if you think about that.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's like no goal support. And just getting pounded with shots. To be 500 and have a .917 save percentage is one thing, too. Like, just to think that you're only 500 at a .917 save percentage is insane. Like that.
Yeah.
I mean, what I think is strange about the standings, and this ties into some rumors I'm going to talk about next, is I don't ever remember being at this point in mid-February and having less teams that I believe in their hearts feel they're cup contenders. Like, I think there are very few teams that think they're cup contenders right now.
I think there are probably about 5 teams
and that's usually, I mean, that number usually is 10 at least. Like,
well, the interesting part is today the organizations are having their meetings because the Five Nations tournament is over, and now a lot of GMs are going back to their teams, and they are having this exact conversation right now.
They are.
Like Jim Benning is flying back to Vancouver today. I saw that.
Who are the Cup contenders? The Capitals, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The Penguins.
The Capitals, the Penguins.
Now Columbus is, are they Cup contenders?
I mean, technically they are.
The Capitals, the Penguins, the Blue Jackets, the Rangers, and the Habs in the East.
I would go with the Capitals, Penguins, Rangers, and Habs. 4, maybe.
Okay,
that's fine. Either way.
Minnesota, Chicago, San Jose, Anaheim in the West. So 4. So that's 8.
That's 8.
8 altogether. That's just incredibly low. I mean, because normally, you have maybe 2 or 3 teams that are making the playoffs that you're like, there's no way they could win a Stanley Cup. Now you have 8 teams making the playoffs that you're thinking aren't Cup contenders. When we say that there's 8 that are, right? So it's rare that you have like half the teams going to the playoffs think that really with Edmonton, Nashville, LA. I mean, St. Louis is playing as if they're almost not. Is the way they're talking about Shattenkirk now? It almost feels like they're not in the playoffs. And then you sit back and you say, "Wait a second, they are in the playoffs." They're still in the playoffs. I mean, they're hanging on, but they're really who's going to catch them? I mean, who's going to catch St. Louis?
They're all fair points. I think what's happened here is, look, I think the NHL has turned into pretty close to the NBA in the sense that teams that are in it, like the NBA, they're pretty much been in this boat for years. And we always used to say, hey, the NHL is a little more unpredictable. Well, now it's not. The only thing unpredictable about the NHL is, yes, you will rotate with Stanley Cup winners, where the NBA does tend to have these dynasty teams. And again, we're not getting into a dynasty. If you don't win them all in a row, to me, it's not a dynasty. Anyhow, we'll move on. Everybody else has a different opinion on that. I'm not willing to go there today, but I'm just saying. But the NBA structure is very similar now to the NHL structure. Like when the playoffs start, you have now named 8 teams. There's even less that you would name in the NBA that have a chance to really win. That's the interesting thing, and it's close to that though.
The thing with St. Louis is, I mean, since they hired Yo, or they promoted Yo and fired Hitchcock, they have played a lot better. They're now in 3rd place in the Central. But they lost Robbie Fabry for the year. They lost Paul Stastny, but it didn't seem to be a serious injury. He may even be back by now. But they're clearly, even though they can make the playoffs, they don't have stable goaltending. Their defense is good, but Shattenkirk is going to definitely leave. They're not going to sign him. So this is the same situation as last year with Backus and with Brouwer. And from all the reports, Armstrong is not interested in letting Shattenkirk walk away for nothing and not getting anything for him when he can get assets for him at the deadline, because they're not a serious Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah, again, he is going to wait to literally until like 3 o'clock on trade deadline day.
I think that Shattenkirk case, you're absolutely right. He's going to drive the price as much as he can and see if somebody goes there. And nobody might go there. We could very easily leave and be like, oh, they didn't trade Shattenkirk, but they will have damn well tried to trade Shattenkirk. That's what we know. Right? Like, we know they are going to try to trade Shattenkirk. Whether or not they pull it off or not, they may not.
Story. And
they're okay not trading him because he does make them a better playoff team. But when they sit at the playoff team and sit in the playoffs, they're looking at Chicago. Basically, they're looking at Chicago. They know that that's who they're going to play unless they fall behind Nashville. I mean, right now Nashville and them are dead even. So if Nashville goes above them, then they're looking at Minnesota or San Jose, right? So
they almost rather fall behind Nashville, because they would play, San Jose or Anaheim in the first round rather than Chicago. I mean, they beat Chicago last year, but traditionally they haven't had good luck.
That's not the best.
I'll give you a surprise team who I think is going to turn into a seller, and that's the Panthers. I think the Panthers are going to turn into a seller.
I don't think that's I think that the seller in terms of, you think they're going to be in this playoff hunt?
No, I think they're going to. I think they're just too far behind it.
I don't think that's a surprise though. Like, I think the surprise with the Panthers would be that if they could get back into it. Like, I think it's possible that they get back into it.
I didn't look at them as a possible seller early in the year until all this stuff happened.
Yeah, I think they're going to stick it out, because right now they're at the same level in terms of amount of games as Ottawa and Toronto is. They have 54 games. They're at 58 points. They're 3 points out of a wild card, and they just got Huberdeau.
Today they are. I'm not sure they're hanging with that.
Right. Well, I mean, everything that we're talking about right now is through the lens of 2 weeks from now. If these teams keep winning and they're still within range, then they're probably going to either stand pat or maybe even add a little. Now, Florida probably won't add because they've signed so many players to long-term deals. And I looked at their roster. If they wanted to like get rid of somebody to make another move, the only guy that they would sort of get rid of as a dump is a guy like Jakob Kindl.
Or Yager.
But I mean,
at some point, I don't know if he's going to be a Panther for life. And if you trade Jaromir Jagr, you'll get something in return.
But now Huberdeau and Barkov are back, and that was the line combo that worked last year. So yeah. I mean, maybe they stick with that. But I mean, right now, I mean, the next 2 weeks are going to be so critical because if Florida can make a move that they can just win and piece together wins, they're in it. They're in the race again.
Yeah, there are a lot of teams. I think there are a lot of teams that are in the race that people don't really think of.
And here's another guy too. UC Jokinen expires next year.
Yeah,
I mean, that's another guy who's been traded quite a bit, who also could really help a team. It's only $4 million.
No, that's true. That's true. He's definitely. I think that So let's talk a little bit of rumors here. Let's get into Landeskog for Carlo, which is like this big rumor that we talked about a long time ago, a couple weeks ago, and at that time I had said that Carlo was untouchable. That's I was told that he was one of the few players that they weren't going to move. When the whole Landeskog thing came out very hot and heavy about 2 weeks ago, that Carlo was just untouchable. That they were not going to move him. And what I was told at the time, which is even odder, is that Claude Julien was the one who maybe was okay moving Carlo, but the management was like, no, we are definitely going to stay with Carlo. And if you remember the press conference that the Bruins held, they actually highlighted Carlo in it and said, that he's what we want to see more of. More players like Carlo getting experience, getting
right.
and playing.
Right.
And now suddenly the rumors of Landeskog for Carlo come out. I'm not buying it because of the fact I think that this is a team, unless the Bruins now, and like I wrote in my blog, far be it for me to say that the Bruins couldn't surprise us and do something strange here and just go back on what they were talking about before. But I don't think Carlo's their guy. I don't think that's what's being discussed.
Go ahead.
My thought is, he's 6'5". He's only 203 right now. He's got a frame where he could put on more weight and he works out hard. So this guy could end up being, 218, something like that. He has 13 points. To me, it's inconsequential, but he's a +1 on the year. So you're talking about a rookie who is really holding his own. It's nice to talk about these other names, like saying, hey, I like what they have in their system, and I do, but we value defense in this game, and as good as Gabriel Landeskog is, for Carlo, I wouldn't do the deal. I know it sounds crazy, but right now, if Boston does that deal, there will be a talent gap that's going to take about 2 years for them to really fully replenish, and they would need someone like a Jakob Kindl or somebody to plug this hole, and they could end up hurting themselves more than helping themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it was reported, Fluto Shinzawa from the Boston Globe reported yesterday that Sakic was in Boston to watch Montreal and Boston and was talking with Don Sweeney. So, I mean, that just feeds into the rumors of a possible deal, and they've been around for a couple months. I don't know. I just don't see it. I mean, I know that Russ, we've talked about it. They have McAvoy, they have Lauzon, they have a number of young defensemen in the pipeline. But like you said, Carlo has played on with Chara all year, played 25 minutes a night, 20 to 25 minutes.
He's probably going to do it next year too.
Yeah, and so that is not somebody that's a prospect. No, that's somebody who is already at 19 or 20 years old, has proved he's a top 4 defenseman. So you're trading an entry level guy, a 19-year-old or 20-year-old defenseman for a guy making $5.5 million. And don't get me wrong, Landeskog is a good player. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. So it may happen. Boston may be desperate to add scoring like Landeskog, but I don't see them moving Carlo. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, especially what you bring up, about the defense, and I talked to somebody today about this, and he said, listen, what Carlo is he's big, like you say, 6'5", and big defensemen usually don't develop this quickly. And big defense, the one thing that's slow developing, it's big defensemen. They are what you usually need to take your most amount of time with, and here you have a guy, who is a big defenseman who has absolutely developed remarkably quickly.
And that's one of the reasons why I think it's easy for St. Louis to move away from Shattenkirk. Why? Because Colton Parayko is a big.
Yeah, he's the same kind of thing.
Big.
Yes, and it's the perfect reason why not to do it. It's funny when we talk about Colton Parayko just out in space. It's easy to trade him.
Yeah.
But when you watch the guy live, you realize he is a real problem for other teams. He really is.
Yeah, he was a big factor in the World Cup of hockey, like a bigger factor than I thought he would be. And just
there wasn't that much of a drop off when Ekblad got hurt and they put Parayko with Morgan Riley. That was a very effective pairing.
You noticed right away, you're like, this guy is something. I mean, he's impressive, and he's in his size, and he moves the puck well, and he really just he has a good shot from the point. He does everything well. I mean,
he just doesn't have the name yet.
Yeah, and that's why Shattenkirk. I mean, if he doesn't exist, Shattenkirk is nowhere near the trade rumors, right? So.
Right.
I mean, the fact that he exists is why they can even look at this Shattenkirk thing. Now, there was a rumor I saw in the rumor buzz today, actually, about this 12-team list now, right, that Shattenkirk has. Where's that coming from?
Well, it was Nick Kiprios from Sportsnet on Saturday Night Headlines who said that Shattenkirk has a list of 12 teams that he would consider signing long-term with. Now, that's not a list of 12 teams to be traded to, but the supposition or the hypothesis here is that he's only going to be allowed to be traded, or St. Louis is only going to trade him to someone where they can get more of a return, and that would be a team that is interested in signing him. So they're sort of limited to that 12-team list. And I mean, because
honestly, do we really think there's going to be a signing trade? I don't think so.
I don't think
they're wanting to test free agency. There's no question in my mind he is testing free agency. Same as Keith Yandle. It's the exact same script.
Yeah, except Yandle still had a year left in his
contract. He did have a year, but he eventually tested free agency.
No, yeah, I mean, if it's by coincidence, he gets traded to a team like the Rangers, who he is rumored to want to play for, and they get him signed before July 1st, then great. But I don't think the Rangers or any team out there is going to trade and give value above and beyond what you'd get for a rental on the hypothesis that you're going to sign him to a long-term deal. That's where I think
Jeff Gordon's not going to do it because he thought he could re-sign Yandle and couldn't do it.
Right.
But there's a difference here. There's a difference with Yandle and Shattenkirk.
I don't think so. Here's
the Rangers thing, though. Remember, we've talked about this before, Russ. The Rangers have a problem when it comes to if the second they hear a player wants to play for them, that is the Rangers will go out of their way to make that happen.
I know.
And the Yandle, it wasn't like Yandle was that. They wanted
Yandle and Gordon were tight.
They were tight, but Shattenkirk now he lives out there. He lives in that area. And he wants to be playing. The second that happens, this Rangers team is all about that. They've always been about that. I mean, St. Louis, Brad Richards, these players who want to play for them.
Sure, I can't lie. I can't ignore that.
They will go out of their way to do crazy things for.
I know.
And Eric
right about that.
Eric Stahl was another one, right? Like Eric Stahl last year wanted to play for the Rangers. That's the only team he wanted to play for, right? So.
Right.
And that's been frustrating from a Rangers perspective because when you are the only team someone wants to play for, you would think the price would be reasonable because they can't sit there and work you against someone else.
The price for St. Louis was insane. Now it should turn out to be a pretty good payoff.
Yeah,
still not as good as the price though.
No, and I think so. That's why when I saw that Shattenkirk wanted to play, quote unquote, wanted to play for the Rangers officially, or what have you, then I immediately thought, oh geez, here we go again. This is the Rangers MO.
Now this 12-team list, and this was the reason why it was brought up on Hockey Night in Canada, included Montreal and Toronto, and I am convinced and this is just my theory, that Montreal and Toronto will get lumped into every single free agent rumor out there because that just drives the speculation engine. The agents want it, maybe some of the teams even want it to raise the price on Shattenkirk. I think he's going to get close to $7 million, and if you mention Toronto, it's going to be in the hopper in Toronto all summer. So I do not think. And this is just, again, my personal belief, I do not think the Maple Leafs are going to spend $7 million on Kevin Shattenkirk. I think they're going to either trade for a defenseman or sign lesser free agent defensemen. They're not going to spend that kind of money on Shattenkirk.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't think they're going to spend that kind of money on Shattenkirk either. I do agree that history has shown us that Montreal and Toronto and the Rangers have been teams that have been in rumors often to keep
to keep the price high.
The Blackhawks too lately.
Right.
But I think Montreal is less so that lately. Last couple of years, Montreal has not been used that way as much. And Toronto hasn't either, but that's been because Toronto hasn't been very good. So
I think it's because Toronto hasn't been good, and Bergevin is known for not giving up much. I think those are the reasons.
There's also the pressure of being on a Canadiens, being a Montreal Canadian, and until they have the thing the Montreal Canadiens don't have, besides Carey Price, is the player to go to. And no one I've talked to stars about this, star NHL players about this before. Everyone's afraid to go there and be the first guy that everyone has to talk to in the media. Like if Montreal had a star that had been there the entire time, that had just been like a Larry Robinson or something like that had always been there that media goes to right away and talks to, and
that star is Yuppie. Yuppie's been there the whole time.
Right, Yuppie's been there the whole time.
But
Carey Price is that guy, but Carey Price is the goalie, and goalies are different. So you have a situation where you have I know players that have not gone there because of that, and French players who have not gone there because of that, especially who are like, I don't want to be the one guy that everybody talks to all the time.
And
Right.
PK Subban liked being that guy, and they traded him.
That's the guy that was the guy, and he's gone. And Shea Weber is not the same kind of personality as PK Subban at all. So,
but Montreal and Toronto being included, I mean, you were right. I mean, Montreal is because of Bergevin, and they were more conservative, and Toronto was basically one of the worst teams in the league the last few years, and their cap situation was all screwed up. But that's all different now because Montreal, their window is a couple years. They have to, conceivably go for it, and maybe signing Shattenkirk would make sense. Toronto has $19 million under the salary cap next year. Even with a flat cap, they're going to have the most money to spend. And of course, I think that makes them attractive to be lumped into these other rumors because they got the money to spend, and other teams may think, okay.
Here's the thing, though. Until we see something different, Bergevin's idea of going for it may have been just signing Radulov in the offseason.
Yes. Yeah, and he'll make his usual tinkering moves and get the 2017 version of Brian Flynn and Paul Byron, which has proved to be not sufficient to win. If you're going to win, make the big move, get the big player, take the chance, maybe mortgage the future a little bit, because in 2 years, Shea Weber is going to be slower. And Carey Price might not even be there. He's going to be a free agent. Maybe he'll be tired of playing in Montreal. Maybe he'll sign with Calgary or something like that. He's a Western Canada boy.
I'd be surprised with that one, but the second part. But I think that I don't know. I think that Price is definitely committed to being in Montreal.
Radulov has 14 goals. It's amazing that hasn't been enough, and 42 points. Like that's a better season than I thought he would give.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Ak. I mean, I'm not starting anything. I'm just saying it's not 100% guarantee that Carey Price stays in Montreal his entire career. I mean, if Montreal gets, says, okay, we're not going to give you what Lundqvist is making, and he's been their number one goaltender for so many years. If somebody else offers that to him, and he has a chance to be closer to his family in Western Canada, he might jump at that opportunity. You never know.
100%. No, I agree completely. I
mean, Patrick Waugh was in his. Oh no, never mind. Oh, sorry.
That's ominous music. What was
that? And that brings us to the bad news of the day. We need more soundtrack stuff. That would be good.
Wow. License to kill gophers.
Oh, I know. Matt Duchene. The word is the price is coming down a bit on Duchene, which is new. It's a little bit new, and not a lot. Not like you're not going to get him for a song, or anything like that. But it's something. And
that's like going to the Maserati dealer and they say, "I'll throw in the mats."
Yeah, the Matt Duchene.
Everybody throws in the mats.
Yeah, we can throw in the mats.
You're looking for an SUV and you go and check out the Porsche Cayenne. Like, okay, no, I think I can handle the Chevy, S10.
It's like rust coating, right? It's like rust coating on you want to bottom your car.
No, they don't even do that anymore. That's not even a thing anymore.
I know. If you don't buy if you don't buy the rust coating, the bottom of your car will just rust out in a year. Why would you sell me something that's so horrible? Well, that's just because that's what happens.
And if it's a Ford, it'll be 3 months. No, but Hey, I had Fords for first time for the first part of my life. Never will again. Thank you very much. No, I did. I mean, sorry.
um, no, no, Matt Duchene. So Buffalo. So I wrote a blog yesterday, and I screwed up the title of it because of a comma I missed, which I'm so sorry about. And I was all day was out with family doing stuff, and I realized this later in the day. But I put Oduya and Sabres and Rangers together, and then Duchene after that. It was meant to be Oduya rumors, comma, Rangers and Sabres with Duchene. So people connected Sabres and Rangers with Oduya, which is not the case. So it was Rangers and Sabres with Duchene, and that was surprising to me. That people were saying now maybe this is Colorado trying to build up the price, but the Rangers being in a Matt Duchene was not something I expected.
Yeah, because it's funny, because there's two teams that you mentioned, and then again on Kyprios on Saturday night mentions Pittsburgh and Carolina. And
yeah.
I would like to see the cap calisthenics that the Pittsburgh Penguins will have to pull off to fit a $6 million Matt Duchene under their salary cap. Because
crazy. I mean, it would have to be for Rick Nash. Like it would just what else could you do if you're the Rangers?
It would have to be Nash. Yeah, you're right. And Pitts.
Well, yeah. it would have to be Nash plus. It would be Nash's salary dump.
Yeah,
and then whoever prospects and picks, Brady Shea and whatever for, yeah.
I mean, you can't call Nash a salary dump because he still gets a certain amount of points, so that's unfair. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, right. I agree with that.
But you're going to a team that's going to be in 30th or 29th place, and the reason you're trading him is because you have to create room for Matt Duchene. So
yeah, but look, I mean, I'm not the biggest Rick Nash fan. This version of him, but you put him with Nathan McKinnon, he's going to get a fair amount of points. So.
Sure.
It's not going to hurt him.
If he can keep up with them, sure.
He can still skate. He can keep up with them.
Here's the trade that I think could happen this week for Montreal, and that would be Patrick Sharp. Okay. And I talked to some people about this, and it would be a matter of, okay, Dallas would have to keep half the salary, do that, you expect, which they'll do.
Mm-hmm.
But Sharp, I could see that. I could see that. That's a move that Montreal brings in. They bring in a stabilizing player who could help give them some playoff experience, which they need.
Right.
I think that's something I could see happening.
Well, I mean, the Chicago connection with Bergevin, you got Andrew Shaw there, former Blackhawk. You bring in Sharp. I mean, it would be interesting to see what the Canadians would have to give up in terms of return to Dallas.
I don't think it would be a lot. I think it would be a draft pick and a prospect, but I don't think it would be like more than a third round draft.
Yeah, but here's the thing: I wonder if the prospect would be Zach Fucale, because he's lost in the Montreal system right now. He's got no chance of ever coming up behind Price.
Right. That's a good.
It wouldn't cost a lot. So even if you're holding on to the other two goalies,
right.
He's cost effective.
They seem to have moved on from him to Charlie Lindgren as their number one prospect.
Right.
Their developmental goaltender, which is a little strange. But I mean, yeah, it's possible. But I mean, could be a Jakob Delarose, could be a McCarron, could be, one of these guys. I mean, I think that Bergevin is going to do everything he possibly can to stay away from moving Juleson, Sergachev, Sherbak,
I think Sergachev is an untouchable. I do.
Right, but I don't think he wants to give up the other ones either. If it's a deal for a rental like Sharp, if it's a deal for a guy like Duchene, then he's going to probably have to give up either Beaulieu or one of those two defensive first round picks, because I don't think Colorado is going to move Duchene unless they get themselves what they think will be a top four defenseman, and one of those guys probably will be.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they went for Duchene in Montreal. Even though, just based on talking to people this morning, it seems like they're going to more or less
the rentals
tinker, here, then make a massive change.
I mean, Hansel's the one that's been mentioned the most because of his size, but he doesn't bring the offense. He doesn't bring the offense at all.
I think in the last,
with the right players, I disagree with that a little bit.
Completely without offense, but he has historically lately not been an offensive player.
Right. That's. I mean, Russ.
He doesn't have a lot to play with.
No,
Right. I'm not saying he's totally bereft of offense, but he's a 15 goal scorer. He's
Okay. But
which
here's the difference.
Yeah.
To me, here's the difference. Every other year he would get between 25 and 30 assists. This year he's got 9. That's a product of the team because he's still going to have 15 goals. He's got 12 goals. He is on a horrendous team, horrendous offensive team.
Agreed.
You can get a boost going to a team like that.
But he's also playing on a higher line with that horrible team than he would be with Montreal. He's probably going to be a third line center with Montreal.
Second line player with Montreal. I do. I think second line. I mean, the Montreal Canadiens in the last 7 or 8 games haven't gotten a 5-on-5 goal for anybody but Galchenyuk and Pacioretty. I read today. It's a ridiculous thing. Like they have literally there is no scoring on Montreal after those guys.
Galchenyuk, Pacioretty, and Radulov, and then basically after that you've got a bunch of.
Well, Byron's got like 12, 13 goals.
Yeah, but there's not a lot there, and again, you cannot going into the playoffs win every game 2-1 or 1-0.
True.
So that's they've got to get, I would say, at least one top 6 forward so they can have 2 offensive lines, because if everything is based on, I mean, right now Philip Deneau is their number 1 center between Radulov and Pacioretty. That's how bad things are.
No, and that's not good. And look, years ago when the Coyotes used to make the playoffs, Hansel was pretty good. I mean, he's got one year he had 3 points in 4 games. One year he had 3 points in 7 games, but he was pretty young then. And then he had 6 points in 12 games. He's got 4 playoff goals. Like, that's a guy, at least, I'm telling you, I still think he's the best fit for them.
I'll tell you the team that made the most sense of all the teams that was mentioned for Duchesne was Carolina, because, and I don't think that's a deal that happens now. I think that's a deal that happens in the summer. But
and I mean, and the rumors of Justin Falk, being directly, I don't see that happening at all. Like, and that's not to say that I actually think it's a pretty fair trade for both teams, but I don't think Carolina's. I think Falk's a pretty popular player.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to trade Justin Falk. I don't.
You're talking right now. If it's Carolina and Colorado, you're talking probably a package deal, and the defenseman is either Hayden Fleury or Pesci or Slavin or one of the younger defense. They're not going to trade Hannafin, and they're not going to trade Falk. I mean, Ron Francis would not be stupid enough to move. I mean, right now you've got Colorado looking to move Matt Duchene, so they're in a position where they're asking for assets. You're not going to give them your top defenseman or your second best defenseman. You're going to give them a prospect.
Right. That makes sense. It makes sense. All right. I think we have anything else on the docket today? I think we're pretty good.
No, actually, I did want to mention one little thing that's going on in the world. In Sacramento, they've had to evacuate quite a few people I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right, Oroville, or in that area where there's a dam, and it could break any minute.
Yeah, this apparently is the biggest dam, the highest dam in the United States. I was talking with somebody this morning about it. It's bigger than the Hoover Dam.
Yeah,
and it was built only about 48 or 49 years ago, and I don't know if it's because of earthquakes or whatever, but it's been weakened, and they've had to evacuate, like basically tell everybody, get the hell out of here because this thing could break.
It could be a wall of water, is what CNN's reporting, and
so
that's a scary proposition because we think, oh well, it's water and water. That's going to ruin people's water. It's not. I mean, this
and destroy people's.
I think I read that it could empty half the reservoir.
Yeah, they're right now they're like doing emergency release of to relieve the pressure. So yeah, let's hope it doesn't happen.
180,000 people last I heard, or something like that. Yeah. It's a lot of people. Well, our thoughts are with those people for sure.
Yes,
area that I think that's part of the drought area, I believe, isn't it?
I don't know. It could be. I'm not sure.
California or Southern California. I hate to say that, but I don't.
Northern. I think it's near Sacramento.
Okay, so maybe
it's
not.
Near Sacramento, I know that for sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I know there's no coming back from that. Sorry.
On that uplifting note, thank you, folks.
I do appreciate it. It's important. Enjoy the games tonight. There's a lot going on, and right now we're at the point where every game seems to mean something in terms of what's happening on the deadline. So we're only 16 days away.
I think you got Rangers jackets. That's a good one.
That is a good one tonight. That is a good one, and it's and I hear I don't think you're getting Bobrovsky tonight, from what I understand.
Oh, interesting.
But Bobrovsky hasn't been that good lately. So
Now, Korpisalo is still a tough draw.
Yep. All right, folks. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Look, Mike left already.
I took off. Yeah.